Pardon me.
One moment. We have to reset Izzy.
Welcome to our Saturday Night Live Hold My Pen Promptcast. Over here to my right, I guess. Right, I don't know. Over here. I mean, well, but yeah, my left. Ha ha ha. Anyway, we have our lovely host, Julie DeFisher, author of Destined for More, the Four Queens for Four Kings series, and the Destined Chronicles, along with all the other works in progress she has from all these writing prompts. And of course, I'm your co-host, extreme reader, extra, Izzy Krause, and you have our lovely guest here tonight who joins us for emotional support, P.A. Power, author of The Chimera Wolf and other books in the series. It's called the Chimera Wolf series?
The Chimera Clan series.
Chimera Clan series. There we go. And every Saturday night at the end of reading these, we roll for 4 options for the next week's prompt, and you, the audience, picks by voting in the comments what we're all going to use next week. This is
please stick around to the end and help us pick what next week's writing prompt is going to be. Even if you're not going to write for it, at least vote for it. It gives us audience participation.
Absolutely. And of course, today is our last day of Harvest the Words, our special November challenge, where we challenged you to string all of these prompts together into one continuous story, helping you build your next novel, novella, novelette, short story, what have you. And this has been pretty successful. I think we're probably going to bring this back a lot more next year. And you guys have made it extraordinarily fun to continually, delve further into your stories. And of course, in both Julie and I's bios, you'll find a link to our individual beacons and link trees. And on there, you will find links to our Discord for the Hold My Pen Promptcast, along with our mailing list. That mailing list does not flood you, but it does get you the prompt Sunday afternoon in your inbox. Even if you happen to miss the Saturday Night Live, you'll still have it in your inbox.
Also, after our writing prompts, we do have a couple of announcements, so please stick around after we choose what our prompt is going to be for next week. But yes, we do have a couple of announcements after we do our writing prompt challenge. And this week we are starting with who? Miss Dahlia, I think?
No. We are starting with our special panel guest, P.A. Power.
Oh, I forgot he was the first.
Yeah, because I had it done within like an hour of you guys giving that prompt. I'm like, done.
Yeah, it kind of fit with what he was doing at that moment.
Well, there we go. Wonderful prompters. The prompt you picked for this past week was use this dialogue. How have you survived this long by yourself? All right. And Mr. P.A. Power, this is a continuation of the story that he's been working on and writing even before Harvest the Words started. Decoding Shady Pines. Ceremony. The soft scent of sizzling bacon and freshly brewed coffee teased Zach awake, pulling him from a dreamless sleep. His lashes fluttered, and for a moment he forgot where he was. Then the scent of David, a woodsy, masculine mix of pine and cedar, wrapped around him, grounding him in the present. Am I hungry? Or am I going for a hike? I'm just... Okay. As he sat up, the sight before him made him laugh softly. David stood at the foot of the bed, a tray of breakfast in hand, looking ridiculously proud of himself. The tray wobbled precariously, though David acted as if balancing it was effortless. "What's this?" Zach teased, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Breakfast in bed," David announced, setting the tray on Zach's lap with the care of someone handling fine china. On it was a spread that looked shockingly domestic for an alpha werewolf. Perfectly scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, buttered toast, and a mug of coffee topped with foam. "Thought you could use a good start to the day." Zach raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a smirk. "David, you've never made breakfast before in your life." David crossed his arms and leaned against the bedpost, feigning insult. "What, you don't think I can cook?" "No," Zach said flatly, though his eyes sparkled with amusement. "But I'll take it." He picked up a piece of bacon and took a bite. It was perfect, crispy, savory, with just the right amount of salt. He sighed dramatically. "Fine, you win this round. It's amazing." David chuckled, leaning closer. "I win every round." Before Zach could fire back, a thunderous bang echoed through the house, rattling the walls. The sound was followed by an all-too-familiar voice. "David! Zach! Open this door right now!" Alice's sharp tone cut through the morning tranquility. David groaned, his head dropping back in exasperation. Oh, no. Zach barely had time to react before the front door flew open and Alice stormed into the room like a hurricane. Her piercing eyes darted between the two men, narrowing when she spotted Zach still in bed. She wrinkled her nose dramatically. "And Zach, you reek of my son." Zach sputtered, nearly choking on his coffee. "Excuse me?" "Mom," David interjected, his voice strained with embarrassment. "Nothing happened. We slept. That's it." Alice sniffed the air as if to confirm. You're lucky I believe you. For now." Then, without missing a beat, she marched over to Zach, plucked the tray off his lap, and yanked him out of bed. "Up, out. We have work to do." "Wait, what?" Zach stammered, stumbling as she dragged him toward the door. "You've got a ceremony to prepare for, young man, and you're wasting precious time lounging in bed," Alice scolded. "And you're not even dressed properly. Honestly, what do you boys do all day?" David stepped forward, attempting to intervene. "Mom, can you not?" Alice shot him a withering glare. "You'll get him back at the altar. Until then, behave." With that, she whisked Zach out of the room, leaving David standing there, shaking his head. This is going to be a long day. From the moment Alice took over, Zach barely had time to breathe. First, there was the suit fitting. "White is perfect for you, dear," Alice had said, ignoring Zach's protests. Then a crash course on the ceremonial traditions he needed to follow. The house was a flurry of activity, with pack members running in and out, carrying flowers, decorations, and supplies. Throughout it all, Zach couldn't shake the lingering scent of David on his skin, a comforting reminder amidst the chaos. By sunset, Zach stood in front of a mirror, dressed in a tailored white suit that hugged his frame perfectly. A black tie completed the look, giving him an air of sophistication he didn't entirely feel. He adjusted the cuffs nervously, his palms clammy. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the next room and froze. There was David, wrestling with his own tie, his broad shoulders and chest straining against the sharp lines of his black suit. The sight stole Zach's breath for a moment. "Having trouble there?" Zach teased, stepping forward. David looked up, his lips quirking into a sheepish grin. "I don't play dress-up often." Zach smirked, reaching out to take over. Clearly, he deftly looped the tie into place, his fingers brushing against David's chest. "How have you survived this long without me?" David chuckled, his voice low and warm. "Luck, mostly." "There," Zach said, smoothing the tie. "Perfect." David's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability flickering in their depths. "You look incredible." "So do you," Zach replied, his voice just as quiet. The moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken emotions, until Zach broke it with a playful nudge. "Your mom sent me to get you. Apparently, we're on a schedule." David grinned. "I guess that means it's time." "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." David offered his arm, and Zach took it without hesitation. The pack arena was breathtaking, transformed into a scene from a dream. A candlelit path wound through the crowd, leading to a white marble arch adorned with ivy and moonflowers. The full supermoon hung high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over everything. Zach and David walked side by side down the path, their steps in perfect sync. The crowd parted for them, their whispers a mix of awe and excitement. Beneath the arch, the elder stood waiting, his presence commanding yet serene. The elder raised his hands, calling for silence. Under the light of the moon goddess, we gather to witness the union of two souls. The cycles of the moon reflect the eternal rhythms of nature, ever-changing yet constant. So too is love, a force that endures even through the darkest nights. The vows followed, each word steeped in tradition and sincerity. David's voice was steady and strong as he promised to protect Zach, to love him unconditionally, and to stand by his side through any challenge. Zach's voice trembled slightly, but his words carried no less weight as he vowed to be David's partner, his anchor, and his equal. When the elder stepped forward with the ceremonial knife, Zach tensed. His protective instincts flared as he instinctively stepped in front of David. "Don't you dare hurt my mate." "Zach," David said gently, resting a hand on Zach's shoulder. "It's okay. It's part of the ceremony." Reluctantly, Zach stepped aside, watching with a mixture of awe and apprehension as the elder made a small cut across David's palm. When it was Zach's turn, he didn't flinch, though his heart raced as the blade bit into his skin. "Now place your hands together, palm to palm," the elder instructed. As their blood mingled, Alice stepped forward with a red leather band, wrapping it around their joined hands. Blood to blood, soul to soul, the elder intoned. "May this bond unite you forever." A surge of energy pulsed through them, powerful and undeniable. David's eyes flashed a brilliant blue, and Zach's glowed a deep, radiant purple. The crowd gasped, and the power of their bond palpable. The elder raised his arms. "By the moon goddess, I declare you bound as one, Alpha and Luna." Cheers erupted, echoing through the night, but for Zach and David, the rest of the world faded away. They turned to each other, their gazes locked, and as one, they threw their heads back and howled at the moon, their voices harmonizing in a declaration of love and unity. The night ended with their first dance beneath the supermoon, the soft melody of a violin filling the air. Above them, a meteor shower streaked across the sky, painting the heavens with trails of light. David held Zach close, his lips brushing against Zach's ear. "You're stuck with me now." Zach smiled, his fingers brushing against the red leather band still tied around their wrists. "Good. I wouldn't have it any other way." And that's the wedding scene from Decoding Shady Pines by PA Power. Pardon me.
One moment. We have to reset Izzy.
Did I break Izzy?
Shush. We don't talk about it. It's fine. That was beautiful. I'm over here having a moment. Well, we're starting strong out the gate.
No, Izzy's not broke, but I do want to say, not only was that beautiful, the way that the two characters are interacting with each other and the family and the acceptance and everything else, but Patrick, your writing, from what I originally read way back when to now, you have come so far in such a short time. This is beautiful and amazing, and I could not be more proud of you, bro.
Thank you.
Okay. No tears. Come on, people. We're already behind schedule.
Yeah, behind schedule.
I love y'all, but we're behind schedule.
We are behind schedule. Okay. Whew.
Yes, that was an excerpt from Shady Pines by Mr. P.A. Power, which will hopefully, God willing, and the creeks don't rise, be out next year.
Oh,
Okay? Do you need another minute?
Apparently had to go off camera.
And off mic.
I may have... I might have broken him right back. Okay. One good turn deserves another. Okay, and our next submission tonight for the weekly writing prompt of Use This Dialogue, How Have You Survived This Long by Yourself, comes from our very own, one of our oldest existing supporters, Trisha Jones. I was out looking for food when I heard movement ahead of me. I started to move towards it, hoping to get some meat to eat tonight. But something told me to leave, that it wasn't safe to be here. I backed up and turned back the way I came. I moved as quietly as possible all the way back to the small cave I made into a makeshift shelter. But it was more than just a shelter. It was my home now. It has been since everyone left. I'm not sure where they all went. I moved out into the woods when the cities lost power and water. Luckily, my dad had taught me to survive on my own in the wild when we would go hunting. As I got closer to my home, I sighed. It looked like a moss and plant cover rock face. Unless you knew where to look, you would never see the small door that is the perfect size for me to fit through. Being a teenage girl with a slight frame of a dancer, which I was before all this happened, once inside, I made sure my door was blocked so the bigger animals can't get in. I rummaged through the satchel I had with me. I had found some mushrooms and some wild herbs and veggies. I guess it's wild vegetable soup again, I sighed. I wish I could have gotten some meat. But because it's getting colder, it's going to be harder to get meat since most animals either migrate to warmer temperatures or are hibernating throughout winter. I had dried edible plants and mushrooms for the winter. I will go hunting again tomorrow to try and get some meat. It would help me get through winter. Maybe I should have went south when the birds left, but there is no guarantee I would make it, I said to myself, knowing I would not be able to outrun bears or mountain lions that I know are in this area. I made a small fire and opened the small vent I rigged up to draw the smoke out. I set one of the few pots I had on the stones that framed the fire and added the veggies to the pot with some spring water I had filtered. I sat down to eat when I heard something outside. I was so still, just listening to see if I could identify what was outside by the sounds. It wasn't any animal I have had dealt with. It almost sounded like a person trying to find a way into my cave. I went to my door, making sure it was secured and the person couldn't get in. Then I heard a gruff male voice. I know you are human and that you are in there. I did not say a word. I backed away from the door to my hunting tools. I grabbed my pew-pew before going back to the door. I am not going to hurt you, he said. I just am excited to know I am not alone. I took a deep breath. I am armed. You make one wrong move and I will be alone again. I understand. I am just thinking we can survive better together. I have done fine on my own, I yelled. Please open up so we can talk like normal people, he asked. I warned you, I yelled before opening my small door. I stepped out and stood with my pew-pew in hand, looking at the tall, grizzly-looking man. He looked at me in shock. How have you survived this long by yourself? Ooh.
Well, ain't that a horse of a different color?
Very nice world building, too. Now I'm wondering why the cities are without power and why is everybody alone and what happened to the people? What?
And honestly, she does have a point. She's not going to outrun a lion or a bear or anything like that. And, she's just as good as a snack to them as they are to her. So, I mean, I can understand staying put.
I can, too. I can too. That was very nice, Trisha. All right, so our submission number 3 for the prompt, use this dialogue. How have you survived this long by yourself? Comes from C.R. McCormack. And more pirates! And that's what the subject line of the email says. More pirates! I demand you take me home. Lifting his head from the dozing nap he'd fallen into, Ridley perked up when he saw their newest guests had joined him at the helm. Oh, well, if you demand it, then surely I must, Ridley agreed, bracing his elbow atop of the helm and resting his chin in his palm, his ever-cocky grin in place. Soraya fumed at him, stamping a foot ineffectually, and it took all his self-control to hold in the giggle that wanted free at the sight. She was much spicier than the nobles he'd run into in the past, but she still had those spoiled habits they all seemed to be born with. You might want to brush your manners off, sweetheart. I am a pirate after all. You don't scare me. I've survived 30 years of noble life entirely by myself. I faced off against far more deadly than you when I was barely a teenager, she spoke, lifting her chin in an arrogant gesture that had his amusement growing deeper. Yeah, I'm fairly certain the threats you have to contend with on a ballroom floor differ a bit than the threats you're going to be facing out here. Her, delighted when she sputtered and fumed. Speaking of bears, Ridley just likes to poke the one named Soraya. They just poke. Poking the bear. Not smart, Ridley. Not smart.
Kind of smart if you think about it. Kind of smart if you think about it.
I don't know.
I have a feeling that there's something fixing to happen between these two.
Maybe. I don't know. The redhead watched with a lazy smile as she paused to look around the deck, likely seeking out any kind of inspiration for a way to convince him to obey her. Not that there was any. No bribe existed that could change his mind. As soon as they'd learned the ring could only be wielded by someone of her bloodline, he'd essentially been press-ganged into the crew. Ridley was happy to take her home. After they'd used the ring to find their way to the Silted Palace, of course. His plan to lift his curse had several steps, and this first one was crucial. Without the ring, they'd never make it to the palace. Not that she needed to know that. Last thing he wanted was for her to realize how important her cooperation was to his plan. Soraya suddenly bolted, rushing for the railing. Ridley thought at first that she was going to be sick. Lots of people that joined their crew spent the first 20 hours throwing up. When she started climbing up onto the railing, however, panic filled him. Not because he feared her drowning, but because he knew what waited in those waters. Whoa, hang on. Hold up, princess, he insisted, lunging forward to try and grab her before she flung herself over. She spun on her heel to face him, one hand latched in the rigging and only a single foot on the railing. Ridley immediately froze, recognizing a threat when he saw one. I am not a princess, she spoke again, her voice firm. I am a lady of a very important house, however, and I am demanding that you take me home, or I will throw myself into these waters, and you will have to contend with a card chasing you in revenge across every ocean you run to. Not a princess. Got it. I have to insist you get down, though. You really don't want to go overboard, he warned, and she scoffed, tightening her hold on the rigging and leaning out further over the rail. One leg hanging out in open air while only her toes remained on the railing. I believe you're the one who doesn't want me going overboard, pirate, she snapped. Now take me home. The surface of the water exploded at that very moment, a loud, ear-piercing shriek accompanying it as Dessa burst from the water. Soraya's shock at the sudden noise and movement had her foot slipping from the railing, her eyes wide as she saw the 50-foot-long sea naga clawing up the boat towards her. Dessa's mouth hanging open in hunger and closing the distance in seconds. Ridley had bolted forward the instant he'd heard the familiar haunting cry of the naga, and he caught Soraya around the waist a heartbeat before Dessa reached her. Tossing the woman onto the deck, he stood between her and the massive snake woman, holding both of his hands out towards her in a placating gesture. Not food, he spoke in a firm voice, a stern look on his face. Dessa's thickly clawed hands were dug deep into the railing, leaving gouges behind in her fury over having her meal taken away. She glared at Ridley through the thick black hair that hung in her face, baring a mouthful of sharp teeth at him and hissing loudly. He held his ground, shaking his head slowly. I know, it was a dumb move on her part. Not your fault. You saw a stranger hanging over the edge. It's perfectly understandable. I didn't get a chance to introduce you to yet, and that's my fault. Ridley pointed one hand back towards the now shaking woman who still lay sprawled on the deck, watching both of them in shock and fear. This is Soraya. She is a very foolish person who will be traveling with us for the next couple months. Don't eat her, he explained, his tone firm and quiet. A pet sea naga! Jesus! The countless pieces of jewelry Dessa adorned herself with jingled and chimed as she shook herself off, her yellow eyes locking onto Soraya as she let out another soft hiss, this one more so disapproving than angry. Ridley waited, holding his breath, and gave the snake woman a warm, fond smile as she looked towards him, her needle-thin pupils widening as she bumped her head gently against his with a quiet purr. What?
To who? Yeah, I guess she loves him.
What the fuck?
Was that the end of it?
No.
Okay,
no.
okay.
I'm just reeling from the giant snake woman being.
Well, I understand that, but you have a tendency to just leave it like that, and then like, I'm like, was that the no? Okay.
No, okay. A quiet purr. A snake woman purring.
Well, snakes do purr. That's fucked up, but yeah, the snakes do purr.
Okay. Dessa pushed off the railing without warning, diving back into the water and leaving inch-deep gouges in the railing behind her. Ridley let out a deep exhale, feeling the weight of the world come off his shoulders. I bet. Slumping back against the damaged railing, he rubbed at his face for a moment, relieved that, all things considered, that introduction went over rather well. Dessa had a history of eating the people she decided didn't belong in the crew, and they weren't entirely in the clear yet, but it was a good start. Looking towards Soraya, he offered a sympathetic smile when he saw she was still sitting on the deck, staring at where Dessa had been. Specifically at the damage her clawed hands had done to the dense, solid wood. 30 years of noble life, huh? How have you survived this long on your own in the cutthroat world of nobility with such a complete lack of survival instincts? He scolded, walking over and offering a hand to her. She blinked out of her shock in order to glare up at him, and he was relieved to see the heat of anger in her eyes. It suited her much more than the glassy fear that had been there a moment ago. She smacked his hand away and pulled herself to her feet on her own. Ridley grinned, lifting his hand to kiss the sting that bloomed from her smack, winking at her. I suggest staying away from the railings until Dessa fully accepts that you're off limits, he warned as he returned to the helm, draping himself over the wheel and letting out a content sigh as he turned his attention to the horizon once more. And that's all we have from CR McCormack today. The
Damn!
50-foot snake woman. Oh, That's going to be fun when all those pieces come together, and I have that book in my hands. I'm going to.
We're all going to be like sitting here on a live going, look, there is no prompt this week. We have the full book in our hands, and we are going to be taking turns reading chapters. For the full book that you do not have to have narrated by two people, well, one that can read out loud and one that stutters over her damn words constantly, please revert to this to buy it here.
Okay, so I've cried. I've been intrigued. I've been shocked out of my Wonder Woman PJ pants. Okay. And then that brings us to our fourth submission for tonight's weekly writing prompt. Use this dialogue. How have you survived this long by yourself? Brought to us
by Dahlia.
By Dahlia Mac. Love you, Dahlia.
Love you.
I need to go grab some holy water.
I don't think that's going to help, but
I don't think that's going to help. Who knows, Sharp? We may have more of the cute Wally, but get it off screen. Get it off screen. Mark. I think you might be okay. No promises. Okay. Okay. We need a family break away from everything. I was thinking about a trip somewhere, Kara said as we drove home. I couldn't agree more. We barely have time to spend together as a family. I don't even remember the last time we were around each other for more than an hour or two. And it's never with everyone, always one-on-one for the most part, I replied. You think we could convince the others to stop what they are doing and join us? Kara asked. No idea, but I will send a message on the family chat, I said, pulling out my phone. Staring at the last message in the group chat, my gut twisted. Jamie, if I ever find you, Haley, I will slice you into tiny pieces and feed you to your family for what you did to me. Crawl into that filthy hole of yours and stay there. 9:33 a.m. Jamie left chat. 9:34 a.m. Today. Hey, everyone. I was thinking of planning a family trip to a hot spring. Who would like to join? It would be nice if we all got together. 7:51 p.m. Mom, that sounds great. Count me in. 7:58 p.m. Well, Mom is definitely in, I said. We pulled in front of the house just as it started raining. Running into the house, Kara locked the door behind me as I grabbed the chair and placed it under the handle. This is so stupid that we have to do all these extra things so he won't be able to get in. It's not like that ass knows where we live, Kara huffed as she threw her jacket on the coat rack. Sitting on the couch, she turned the TV on and shifted the channels. I sat beside her, looking through my phone notifications, sliding most of them away, not bothering to open the app sub to see what was in the notifications. Picking a channel, we start watching the end of some cop show. Next on comes The Nun. That did not bode well. No, that
does not bode well at all.
Well.
No.
This movie good enough? Don't feel like searching anymore, Kara asked. Yeah, I replied. 2 weeks later. Hey, time to wake up, Kara said, shaking me. Yeah, I'm up, I mumble, dragging myself out of the bed. I got dressed into some comfortable sweatpants, packing the last few things into my suitcase, hairbrush, toothbrush, and my meds. Heading out of the house, I placed my suitcase in the trunk. Oh, fuck, I need my phone, I thought, running back into the house. Grabbing it off the charger and pulling the charger out of the wall, I ran out and locked the door behind me. Kara was in the car waiting for me. I hopped in the passenger seat and buckled myself in. Okay, ready to go, I said. You didn't set your alarm, did you? Kara asked. No, sorry, I forgot to turn it on, I replied. All good. Wouldn't be you if you didn't forget to do something. How have you survived this long by yourself? Kara asked. I have no idea. It must be all the support I get from my family. Because I definitely wouldn't have made it if they didn't put up with all my failures. I couldn't even keep a house standing, I replied. That's for damn sure. I am still confused how your house blew up. Let the others know we are leaving the house now, Kara said. What would I do without you? I replied. I messaged the family group chat. Today. Kara and I are leaving the house now, 8:48 a.m. Max, see you soon. Drive safe, 8:49 a.m. Driving to the hot spring, we blast some 80s music, singing along as best as we can, but failing epic when trying to hit the correct notes. Yeah, side note, 80s music, unless you grew up on it, can be very hard to hit the right notes. Just saying. Before I know it, we are driving into the mountains. Seeing two cars pulled off the road, Kara pulled over behind them. Getting out, I look around seeing no one in sight. Are we supposed to just pull over here? Thought we would be more off the road than just parking in the ditch, I asked, confused. You gave the address, and this is where it brought us, Kara replied, rolling her eyes as she looked on the map. Hello? Can anyone hear us? She yelled. Maybe we have to walk to get to the hot spring. No way I am walking into the woods with all our shit. It said there was a parking lot on the website. Did you put the right address in my phone? Kara huffed. Of course, I copied it right off the website. I don't remember it saying anything about a parking lot anywhere when I looked at the website, I retorted, searching the website up on my phone. Really, service? Now is not a good time to fail. I need to check something, I sneered. You too, huh? Well, fuck, what are we going to do now? Kara asked. Let's drive around and see if there is a turnoff up ahead, I said. Hopping in the car, we pull away and look for a turnoff. After a couple minutes, we see the two same cars pulled off the road from before. What the fuck? There is no way we just went in a circle, Kara snapped. After the fourth time passing the two cars, Kara slowed to a crawl and turned around driving on the opposite side of the road. We passed the cars once from the other side. From there, a turn on the right side came up. Turning onto the gravel road, we drove for about 10 minutes before stopping in front of an old Victorian house. Is it just me, or is this really fucked up? I asked. Nope, this is so fucked up. I swear, I would have seen this turn the first time before passing those cars, Kara replied. The door flew open just as Kara and I got out of the car, flicking momentarily before relaxing. Out came my mom, dad, and brother as they waved cheerfully. I am so glad you guys made it. Come, we got some partying to do, my mom said, waving us to hurry in as the boys grabbed our bags. Looking at Kara, we silently stared at each other. There's no more.
What?
There's no more.
How is there no more?
I want more, Dahlia. I want.
We'll have to wait.
More. Cause yes, you scared the ever-loving bejeebus out of me with a bunch of your stuff, but I want more of this. Cause it's not lopped off hands and beheadings and waffle tasting smoothies made out of people. But this I want more.
You'll have to wait till next week.
I don't know what happened, Kesh. That's the problem. I need to know why they went in a circle and went past two cars and 4 times in somehow going off in a circle when there wasn't an actual circle, and then suddenly they turn around and they're at a Victorian house. What?
Well,
Blair Witch
then
Project.
they turn around, they pass the cars one time from that side, then there's a gravel driveway, which they should have already seen. So it's like, no, there's some shit happening here.
Okay, so we are now to submission number 5 for this week's weekly writing prompt of Use This Dialogue. How have you survived this long by yourself? In which I, Izzy Krause, pull a Julie and never get to the prompt. But you'll see what I mean. And this little scene here is entitled in Knight in Shining Armor. No, 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 no! Maggie slammed her fists on the steering wheel, screaming her frustration. Why is this happening to me? What have I done to deserve any of this? Her screams gave way to tears, hot and angry down her cheeks. She sobbed, unable to catch her breath. The world outside the car fell away as her frustration over the popped tire exploded into every horrible experience at the hands of the demon. 8 years of watching and feeling him devolve from the charismatic high school sweetheart into his true and horrible self racked her body with pain. Escaping from Wilmington with her very life felt like a hollow victory when the escape itself included the death of her marriage, hopes, and dreams for the future. Maggie cried, absorbed in her traumatic memories until there were no tears left. Even in the middle of Nowheresville, western Montana, there was no escape from the demons haunting her heart. A knock on her window startled her back to reality, and the face covered in thick, salted black fur peering in at her. With her heart pounding in her ears, she reached trembling fingers to the button to lower the glass. Oh, Sven, hi. Where'd you come from? I didn't hear your truck. Sven leaned away from the window, hands on knees, and took a small step backward. Hey, Maggie. That's all right. Looks like you are focused on something far more important than my engine roar. You all right? She tucked her hair behind an ear and pulled her sweatshirt cuff over her thumb to wipe at drying tears. Oh, I have definitely been better. I was just taking a moment before changing my tire. Why don't I help? It'll go faster so you can get back on your way. She nodded meekly. Sure, I appreciate the help. She reached down to her seatbelt to unlatch it and found her fingers turned to wet cooked spaghetti, making the button impossible to push effectively. After watching her momentary struggle, Sven cleared his throat gently and reached tentatively for the door handle with a pointing finger. May I? Yeah, sure. Her verbal stumbling caused a deep blush across her cheeks. Sven slowly pulled the handle and opened the door. Stepping closer as though approaching a wounded animal, he pointed cautiously again at her stuck seatbelt. And here? Maggie nodded, feeling more than a little foolish and childlike. When the buckle popped, Sven quickly stepped away from the car seat but offered his hand to assist her out of the vehicle. She chuckled. I guess chivalry isn't dead after all. Mama would have my head on a platter if I wasn't courteous to everyone I meet, Sven said. He jabbed a thumb over his shoulder toward the trunk of her car. Is it keys, a button, what? Maggie looked dazedly at him. Oh, to open it. Key fob, one moment. She reached back into the interior of the SUV to pull the keys from the ignition and press the button in question. The back hatch of the Armada opened slowly. To her surprise, Sven quickly ducked inside and began pushing aside toys and clothing to lift the well cover. Maggie walked toward the back of the SUV and leaned on the brake light. Do I not have a spare tire? That is too small to hold one. Without turning to look at her, Sven rummaged around, mumbling under his breath, clearly annoyed. Well, no, presumably it's under the car, just like a big SUV type or a truck. But that's not your problem. He stepped back with his hands on his hips and furrowed his brow. What's my problem, then? You don't have the tool that will lower the tire, nor a jack. The jack is no problem. I have one in my truck. The tool, though, that's important and specific. I don't carry one of those for foreign vehicles. Most people around here drive Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. Maggie slumped against the bumper. Oh, man, what do I do now? Sven snorted and chuckled. He reached into the pocket of his denim jeans and pulled a small chunk of window chalk out, picking off a bit of lint. You hop in my truck and we go get you one? Lock it up and we'll drive into town. I'll mark the car quick so the brownies know it's being taken care of. He marked the front and rear windows with S. Nils and pushed the chalk back into his pocket. Your chariot awaits, milady. He bowed his head with his hand over his heart, the other gesturing toward the passenger side of the large and beastly truck. Maggie laughed, nodding her chin in his direction like a proper court lady as she walked past him to the passenger side of his truck. My lord. As he opened the door and ushered her in, her heart clamped. Memories of the demon in the early years back in high school, when he had been chivalrous and courteous. Sven isn't him, she thought. But what if my radar is broken? Her knight in shining armor for the day shut her door and walked to get into the driver's side. She raised her hand and clicked the lock button on the key fob. Not that there was anything worth stealing in the vehicle, but she didn't need the heartache when a stray toy went missing or was damaged and the wailing it would cause back at the cabin. And that's all I got for now. And Char's down here claiming Sven. Okay, now I'm in trouble with Char, Trisha.
Yeah, you're getting capted over here. She's like, I gave you a riddle. You gave me a how dare you.
It is going to be a full story. When I go to finish and get into town and everything, I will be more than happy to send it to you, Char. Okay? Okay?
She's using the smiley with the smoke coming out of its nose and everything.
I may be... I think that story has its first alpha reader. All right. So, again, I pulled a Julie, not actually getting to the prompt, but you'll see where it's going. There we go. So our final prompt of the night, submission number 6. Thank you guys so much for rallying and coming in and giving us 6 tonight. Could not do it without you. And of course, it's use this dialogue. How have you survived this long by yourself? From the upcoming book, Crossroads by one Julie DeFisher, where we are all about to come for her. Just saying. The sun was setting in Cancun when Nikki, Piper, and about 4 others had gotten off a 6-hour private flight. They hadn't planned on going to Mexico. Nikki and Piper were earmarked to be in Italy for 2 weeks to pay tribute to Nikki's great-grandfather for his birthday. But when someone goes on the run with nearly $8 million of Don Valence's money, plans revert quickly. Neither Nikki nor Piper were happy about the development, but when push came to shove, they didn't have a choice in the matter. Don Valence didn't trust anyone else to go on this pickup. He needed this rat brought back alive, and there weren't too many on his staff that he trusted to complete the task. After all, he was still trying to make his way through the list of suspects that had contact with this swindler, so all could stand before him and pay the price for screwing him over. Nikki had a bad feeling about Edgar Cannon from the moment he laid eyes on him. Don Valence had brought him in at the recommendation from another family to deal with the finance side after Ralph finally took retirement. While Nikki never trusted him, Don Valence swore things would run smoothly, and with some updated practice that so many of the other families were already reaping the benefits of. While things went well for the first year or two, Nikki and most of the others had noticed things were starting to get sketchy. Don Valence was starting to believe the once trusted muscle were skimming off the top, and some were severely dealt with on Edgar's word. Valence Jr. kept his nose out of it, while Nikki did a lot of digging to figure out the truth. It took Piper and him 2 years to come up with enough evidence to even get a sit-down with Don Valence for him to calmly hear them out. By that time, Edgar had skipped town. Nearly a month later, word had gotten around about a big-time roller in Cancun matching up with Edgar's description. Seemed like someone that would have been smart to lay low was racking up debts all over Mexico using Don Valence's name just before skipping town to the next location. They had him located currently in a pretty pricey resort. Seemed that Edgar had a taste for gambling and fancied himself a card shark. When he got caught counting cards at the last resort, he nearly got his hands broken, but left town before the family down there had got their hands on him. You know, this isn't what I had in mind when I said I needed to get out of town for a bit. Piper pushed her sunglasses up her nose, getting in the BMW. At this point, I would rather be driving a Maserati down the coast in Sicily, but at least we aren't chasing our tails. We know where he is and should be able to wrap this up quickly, Nikki grumbled, climbing in next to Piper. Yes, it should be quick. I don't see him coming without kicking up a fuss, Piper said under her breath. I know Papa wants him to be delivered alive. I'm hoping with who he sent with us, he will get what he's asked for. Dom maybe will play by the rules, but the other two might have other plans as they were part of the wrath when this all started. Piper looked over at Nikki to see him taking in the scenery as they drove through town. Piper knew Valance Sr. had put quite a bit of pressure on Nikki to bring Edgar back to face the music, and she wasn't happy about seeing Nikki used as some sort of pawn in the old man's game. To her, Valance Jr. should have been the one to finally get his hands dirty, but he had gotten out of it due to a technical issue. Those technical issues involved a beautiful blonde that had just been sent to another of the families in Texas, along with a very large bottle of scotch to drown his sorrows when this one turned him down for his age. While Piper should respect Nikki's father, she couldn't stand the man that lived his life either pretending to be a socialite, headlong in the next scheme to weasel himself to the top of the family, or ass deep in whatever expensive liquor the old man kept around the house. There were many reasons Valance Sr. took Nikki after his mother died, and unfortunately, these weren't even the tip of the iceberg. Piper wasn't sure if she ever wanted to know the whole story, but she knew regardless she would be what Nikki needed. As they approached the large villa, Nikki sighed. They were supposed to be staying at the hotel, but last-minute plans had changed, and Don Valance didn't want Edgar spooked if he happened to run across them in the casino. They had to be cold and calculating, staking him out for a few days as they could make the best plan in which to snatch and grab. It was okay. None of the men had noticed this was going to take longer than promised. Hell, what did they care? They were in Mexico with half-naked women parading around without a care in the world. Nikki and Piper's worry is whether they could keep them on task long enough to grab Edgar and get the hell out of town without them adding to the population. Don't subtract from the population. Don't add to the population. We are keeping it tight around here until Edgar is in hand. This isn't a vacation, Nikki barked, seeing every man with them drooling over the eye candy. Isn't that going to take a few days? I mean, mixing a little business with pleasure isn't always a bad thing, Carl said, shooting a look over to Nikki. You heard the boss. No grab-assing until the rat is in hand, Dom spoke up before Nikki had a chance to respond. There had been some talk around the house and family for years over Nikki and Piper's closeness. It was very much a don't ask, don't tell situation, and depending on who brought it up, how much Nikki was going to react. He could go from zero to someone picking themselves off the floor in 2 seconds flat. Piper always played it off as they were friends, comrades, or partners in crime. She played it closer to the vest than most, and while most speculated on why they always made it where no one could prove anything. Carl, if you and the others plan on having all the parts you left with returned back to the States attached, I'd stick to the job. Piper's voice was barely over a whisper, but the threat was clear. Yes, ma'am, they all clearly said, shuffling bags into the villa and getting their room assignments. Sometimes I wonder if they're more scared of you or me, Nikki smirked, grabbing the last of their bags out of the trunk. A healthy dose of fear is never a bad thing. As I am your right hand, the fear of me is also the fear of you, Piper said, running her hand over the dagger strapped to her thigh. I guess I should be lucky you didn't pull that during the flight. You should be lucky I got on the plane. You know it's faster than driving, and you know why I don't fly. Now we are going to play the circle jerk game, or are we going to get ready to catch a rat? Piper glared at him, proving her point. Well, go get showered. We leave for dinner in 30. Snatching up her bags, Piper strutted into the house to start phase 1 of this thrown-together plan. Nikki couldn't help but admire the woman she had become, and with little help from him, he had to admit. She was a spitfire if he had ever seen one, but it was the stone-cold rage that pushed her forward that Nikki tried to chip at little by little. She would never let her guard down, even when it was just them, which had saved his life a few times, even if he didn't want to admit that one. When are you going to tell her? Dom said, taking a cigar from his pocket and offering it to him. Tell her what? Nicky's forlorn look was gone, and now he was snapped back to the reality of the situation they had found themselves in. Come on, Nicky. Don't play stupid with me. We have been thick as thieves since we were kids. I honestly don't know what you're talking about, Dom. Piper and I are just partners, and not romantic ones either, Nicky said, feeling that pang in his chest that he had felt since the day he had seen her in that bar. You're kidding yourself, man. But hey, I get it. Don Valance wouldn't be happy with the choice, even if it is none of his old-ass business, Dom said, throwing the rest of the cigar down and stomping it out with his boot. Don't wait. Forever is a long time to spend alone. Dom threw his bag over his shoulder and proceeded to walk into the house. Nicky wasn't as clueless as he made others believe he was, but he couldn't risk Piper's life. Well, more than he already did. She chose to stay after she was healed up. She chose to train and become part of his world. He had told himself for years it was because she didn't want to go back. Not that she couldn't ever go back. Nicky feared the day she would choose to leave, but for now, he didn't have to worry about that. Nicky had the men staked out at several different hotels to garner information about Edgar. Since he didn't just play in the hotel he was staying at, it made more sense for them to spread out and track his movements. They wouldn't grab him unless they had a clear shot not to be noticed. Nicky and Piper's job was to be seen and find out as much information as they could about the resort he was staying at. It was nearly 3 days of headhunting before Edgar had slipped up. Every night, Nicky and Piper would go to the tables, gambling for a few hours, acting like tourists. For the first few nights, they sat side by side at the tables. But as they caught the attention of Edgar, Nicky removed himself to watch Piper work her magic. Edgar, who seemed too drunk to notice who they were, started flirting with Piper almost immediately after Nicky went a few tables over to play blackjack. She played that to her advantage. After all, they only needed to know which room was his to do a snatch and grab. Edgar thought he was playing big shot, betting double or nothing on a double king river. Piper called and knowingly lost. They played a few more hands before Edgar got cocky enough to slip his hand over onto Piper's thigh. You know, if you lose this time, you're going to have to come up with something a little more than money. I always pay my debts. Piper batted her eyelashes at Edgar. I bet you do. Edgar licked his lips, looking at Piper in a short, flowy lace skirt and matching poet shirt. When the last card flipped over, Piper knew it was showtime. As she feigned disappointment at the turn of her luck, looking over at Edgar, she had to fake shock that she had lost for the 5th time in a row. Racking his winnings into the black velvet bag laying next to him, he grabbed Piper by the wrist. I think I know how you have survived this long by yourself. But I think it's time for you to show me what I have won. Piper didn't act surprised at his words, though she knew she would have to take a long shower to get the smell of the cheap tequila off of her. She giggled to herself that if they could just get him near an open flame, he would take care of the job himself. He surely smelled flammable. As he dragged her to the elevators to go upstairs, Piper started dropping random items to make sure Nicky could follow her path. She knew he would have already been on the phone with the guys, letting them know Edgar had taken the bait. It was up to her now to keep him within arm's reach until the guys came and claimed him. She was thankful this would be her last night in Mexico. Edgar had his hands all over her as they entered the elevator alone. She playfully pushed him away, knowing she would only have to play along for a little while longer. The boys would either bust down the door within minutes of their arrival or be standing outside the elevator as they got to the floor. Either way, Piper's patience for being the bait was wearing thin as the drunk Edgar began to take liberties that most men would get stabbed for. She knew the stipulations to being paid for this job teetered on him being brought back alive. With the way he was touching her, Piper wanted to put this man down like the vile vermin he was. By the time they had reached the 23rd floor, Piper had accidentally kneed him in the balls 3 times and elbowed him in the face twice. He was unsteady on his feet as they exited and headed down the hall towards his high roller suite. She offered herself to lean on as she took the key card from his pocket, letting them into the room. What Piper had seen when she entered the room made her want to vomit. The room was trashed with so many bottles and rotten food containers you would think there had been a frat party there for a week with no maid service. They would definitely have to slip the cleaning crew a huge tip for dealing with this horrendous mess. As she dropped him in the middle of the living room, she heard screams coming from the bedroom. Pulling her pew-pew from her purse, Piper eased open the door to find a young woman tied to the bed. Oh, Edgar. Putting a finger to her mouth, she cleared the room until she had determined she was the only one in there. She untied the woman, checking her out from head to toe to make sure she had not been harmed. What's your name? Isabella, she cried, rubbing feeling back into her wrists. I'm Piper. I'm going to get you out of here. How? He's going to be back any minute. Her eyes darted about the room. Because he's passed out on the floor, and, well, let's just say I have some friends that are going to be coming to take care of him. Piper reached into her purse, handing the woman a large stack of money. Take this and run. The woman didn't think twice as Piper walked her to the door. She knew the fear in the woman's eyes all too well when she looked back at her stepping onto the elevator. The comments are all over the place. Edgar would pay the price for what he had done the same way she hoped Xander would pay for all he had done to her. For now, Piper had to put the past aside and deal with the present. She waited for nearly 20 minutes when she finally picked up her phone to figure out where the guys were to pick up this trash. Where the hell are you? Piper screeched into the phone when Nikki picked up. What floor? Nikki barked. 23, penthouse 3. Be right there. Piper had slammed the phone down and found a sturdy enough chair to hoist Edgar's body into. She even used the ropes that he had tied the woman up with as a lovely little touch. He would soon know what it was like to be helpless and beg for his life, knowing that the end result would be Valance Sr. using him for fertilizer for his roses. There was no way out of this one, and Piper wasn't sure if Edgar had caught on to that as of yet. The knock on the door startled her, as it almost sounded like the police, and not 5 men here to collect Edgar. Piper looked through the peephole inside. Thank God the cavalry had finally arrived, so they might be able to get the damn show on the road. Opening the door, Nikki had busted in first, followed by Dom, Carl, and the others. Nikki rushed to see if she had been hurt, while the four swept the penthouse from top to bottom. I'm fine. There is no one else here. But we are going to have to leave a rather large tip for the maid services. Edgar was nasty, Piper said, trying to get Nikki to stop. Where is he? Drunk, slightly unconscious, tied to a chair, Piper told him in her usual sarcastic tone. Let's get him and get the hell out of here. Nikki's hand lingered a little too long on her arm as he made his way out of the foyer and into the massive living room. Damn, Piper. Think you could leave us a little something to do next time? Carl complained, as it wasn't often since she joined the crew that he had anything to really do. Technically, he did most of it to himself. I just proved a point that a man should never put his hands, unless welcomed, on a lady. She feigned innocence as the others busted out laughing. Nikki stood there with a fire in his eyes that Piper didn't understand. And since she has done all the work, I say you four can take him back to the villa and lock him up. We leave out bright and early, Nikki said, staring daggers at the men that stood before him. You heard the boss, Dom said, shaking his head. He knew Nikki had panicked when he had lost her at the elevator and had no idea what floor they had gone to. Dom and the others had been searching the floors for any sign of her when Nikki had texted and told them the 23rd floor. He wished that Nikki would be honest not only with himself, but with Piper. It had been hours since they had gotten back to the villa with Edgar in hand. Nikki had tried for 2 hours to get a hold of the pilot to no avail, and when he finally reached the co-pilot, he had found out they both had been drinking. He told them to sober up and call Dom when they knew a takeoff time. This wasn't an ideal situation, but Nikki had decided to make the best of it and take Piper to a local spot he loved. It was an outdoor spot that overlooked the beach. At the sunset over the water, Nikki couldn't think of a better place to be with the most beautifully strong woman next to him. They ate and talked about what was hopefully next when they got back home. Piper seemed to be all busy in front of everyone else, but when it was just her and Nikki, time seemed to stand still. One margarita turned into two, which turned into three. And as the drinks kept flowing, so did the conversations of hopes, dreams, and furthers of what ifs. Before anyone knew what was going on, Nikki and Piper had found themselves on the dance floor, spinning around like there was no one else in the world. As Nikki went in for one of those famous dips, he had almost gone too far, which would have landed both of them on the hard wooden dance floor. He recovered, and when they came back together, Nikki had softly kissed her on her neck. Piper's already overstimulated system begged for him to do it again. She didn't know if it was the alcohol talking when she told him to touch her, or when she had also suggested they get tattoos so they could always remember that night. But when he obliged her for both, she figured what could be the harm in obliging him when he asked her to spend the night with him in his bed. When Dom knocked on the bedroom door the next morning, heads were pounding. Piper had to jump up and run into the closet to keep from being seen. They swore to each other nothing would ever change, and while that wasn't the first night they had found solace in each other's arms, it was certainly the most memorable one. As Nikki had a spade high on his inner left arm, and Piper had one on her shoulder blade. Once upon a time in Mexico. Once upon a time in Mexico.
What happens in Mexico stays in Mexico.
Unless you come home with the damn proof of it.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice.
Everybody wanted to know what happened in Mexico.
Matching tattoos is what happened in Mexico.
Now, if they get a baby out of this and it has a birthmark.
Well, you remember the last scene, he's playing, when he's in a drunken stupor, he's looking over the fucking maps, trying to figure out where she is, and he keeps rubbing the tattoo. What nobody understands is the reason she's done up like a frosted cupcake is because her tattoo's on her shoulder. Her tattoo's visible.
Technically, both tattoos are visible depending on what you're wearing.
Hers a little bit more visible than his because he would have to have his arm up. Because his tattoo is right here.
Yeah, but as you're moving things around, and if he's wearing an A-line shirt and blah, blah, blah.
You have to know what you were looking for.
And more often than not, he's either going to be in short sleeves or long sleeve, etc. So, but he can also lay him down. You'll see it. Oh. We went all over the place, and everybody's coming for everybody on these stories. But again, this challenge was really fun. I don't think we're going to do this every month, but this will make a difference quite often.
Mainly for the cold ones.
Yeah, the cold months when we're all kind of, what do I write? I don't know. And on top of that, it also, I think, helped a lot of you, our audience, decide which prompt you were going to pick. How can I fit this into what I'm already working on? And obviously, the regular writing prompts and the starting lines don't always fit in with what we're already writing, but dialogue just, you can make it mean so many different things. So,
as we've seen, everybody used it, and I tweaked mine a little bit. We will see how you lasted this long by yourself. It's like Like, dude, you have no idea what's coming for you once you reach the elevator.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, Star said that she was going to continue to use it for the prompts to continue the story with Ridley and whatnot. And I'm like, as we've said, Scarlet Chains has been entirely written out of prompts, not just Hold My Pen Promptcast prompts, but other prompts that I've picked up other places just to continue to build it and help inform where my story is going, because the characters aren't doing that. They're just reacting and giving attitude. So, glad I have this other work in progress going, A Whisper of Fear. So, I think this has been a very successful month.
Especially since, while I didn't hit the 40, I did hit over a quarter of it. And that was also with other, side projects and stuff that I was working on. So I'm pretty proud of myself.
And you should be. Everybody should be.
I would also like to point out we are actually 4 weeks. That's one of our announcements tonight. We are 4 weeks from the show being on air for 1 year. 1 year ago, I had this idea, and it was because I had writer's block, and I was in the middle of editing, doing a massive rewrite of Destined for More. And I needed something, anything to get the brain doing the brain thing. So with all that being said, GT Grad said, give us a writing prompt. And as he has labeled that particular story, the Pigfoot, the writing prompt challenge was born. And everybody thought it was a great idea. Nobody actually wanted to take it and run with it. I took it and run with it. And here we are almost a year later. Yes, we have had our ups and downs and ins and outs, and we've all gone through collectively a lot this year. But we've also been each other's greatest supporters, each other's greatest cheerleaders. I cannot thank you guys enough for being the best group. I got a bunch of pies. The best group that any one person could ever have. Are we ready for the prompt yet, or?
I got my.
Okay, so here we go. The Magic 100. Oh wow, it didn't even bank this time. We are 20, number 20.
Ooh, one of the early ones. Now again, no more Harvest the Words next week, but obviously, at any point in time, if you want to use the prompt to continue a current work in progress, please, by all means, do so. All right, so, number 20. Well, I had the chance. Number 20, a character finds a mysterious book that reveals their future. And number 120 is a time-traveling student accidentally changes historical events during a history class.
Okay.
All right. And now to another roll.
$72.
Starting first lines. He had enjoyed 10 years of being totally irresponsible.
That could play into Nikki.
That could totally play into Nikki. All right, and last but not least, our audience favorite.
I'm sorry, 81.
81. Oh, God.
What?
Uh-oh.
Yes, all of these are always in the Discord, literally right after we end the show.
All right, option number 4, our favorite, audience favorite, use this dialogue is, did you hurt yourself?
Oh my God.
All right, so we've got audience participation. Vote in the comments for 1, 2, 3, or 4. I'm going to read them off again. Number 1, a character finds a mysterious book that reveals their future. Number 2, a time-traveling student accidentally changes historical events during a history class. Number 3, starting first line. He had enjoyed 10 years of being totally irresponsible. And number 4, use this dialogue. Did you hurt yourself? And as I was reading those, going through, it's just a resounding 4. You love the dialogue tags.
Actually, Dahlia said send them all to her, and you know me, send me 3 and 4.
Literally why I was typing them all in an unsent Discord message, because I know Dahlia is going to want all 4. Dahlia is our champ, trying to put all 4 somehow into a single writing prompt. So I've already got them all ready to be able to send to her. No big deal.
I'm going to try to put at least 2 of them into this book.
All right. Yeah. See, Shar, I liked number 3 too, but we are outvoted. And you switched once that 4th one came out. So here it is. Next week's prompt. Prompt number 37 for 2024, due December 7th. Use this dialogue. Did you hurt yourself? Question mark.
This falls into the main thing of, but did you die?
Oh. Sorry, I had to use that line.
Okay. Now on to the last bit of our announcements. We do have something on our finale show. Well, not our finale show, but our finale.
Season one finale.
The end of season 1 and the immediate beginning of season 2. So we do have something big coming. No, we will not be announcing it tonight. So that's the teaser. You got to keep following. Secondly, we do have one for December, another Harvest the Words type challenge, except for this one is you write whatever you want. You know, if you want to link all the prompts together, link all the prompts together. If you don't, then don't. This was a really good explanation or haha moment, and we did really well with it. And we will be doing something like this again. So our December challenge, the winter solstice sprints. So what I just want you guys to continue to do the same thing I've been trying to get you guys to do all year. Just keep writing.
Right. Just keep writing.
Just keep writing. Whether you write 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes on any of these prompts, I just want you to keep writing. For this month, though, I would like to challenge you to challenge yourself to put in just that little extra effort. Only writing 5 minutes, try writing for 10 and see what you can do. But I'm so interested in seeing what everybody can do. And one of these days, I mean, it could happen. It could very well happen that somebody's going to come up with just the right inspiration that we threw out there. And before we know it, that's a published work. And we will be able to sit back the entire time and read it and marvel at it with everyone else, knowing that while we didn't write it, we had a little hand in it. Even if it was just us with the fairy dust over the top of your head. Yes, we are the encouragement. We are the no. We're kind of like the moms that sit there going, okay, you made all these excuses, but now how are you going to do it?
Yeah, because I'm not putting the cheerleading outfit on again. I mean, it's been like 30 some odd fucking years since I wore a pleated skirt. We ain't
I will break out the football jersey. I will break out my football jersey and sit here like it's nobody's business. I would love to say that you guys are the best part of the show. And we love you. Thank you so much for being here. But it is exactly 10 o'clock. We finally made it all the way 10 o'clock. And we were running late. So, I mean, we really, even with commentary, we made it all the way out.
Well, and that's something that I can say that, you know, I'm so thankful for our constant recurring people. You know, I'm now at that point where I recognize and I know kind of the way you guys are writing, so I know where the inflections are going to be, and I'm getting used to. Oh, pardon me. I'm getting used to reading your work aloud. So that it's allowing me to get better at reading publicly, and you know, you guys are giving me such great stuff that I can just jump in there, and I'm not struggling to read it out loud. And you guys do that by showing up every single week, giving us great stories to read and hear, and you know. So with that being said, don't forget to join the Discord. We do writing sprints. We also hang out. We've even been known to clean and do laundry together. Whatever it is that you need, some backup, some cheerleaders, some social connection, we do that. We also help you with whatever questions you've got. You know, going, hey, do you think this makes sense? Do you think that, you know, I'm usually not there during the week, because I have a day job, you know, working at a credit union. So I'm not there. So I'm not going to know anything about it. And you'll still get my authentic reactions come Saturday night. But don't forget to also sign up for the mailing list, so that if there's a Saturday night where you cannot make it, you cannot join us, get it in your inbox. It also makes it easy to submit, because all you have to do is reply to it. And that makes it easier, so that it's all in one place, and I'm not searching Discord, Messenger, Yahoo.
The wrong email address.
The wrong email address. So, and again, it also tells certain announcements, because in the new year, we do have some new things planned. As Julie was talking about, we do have the anniversary special thing that we're going to announce later on, but we also have some additional show types that we want to do along with the weekly writing prompts. So once again, thank you all very much. Don't forget to subscribe to the mailing list for the prompt in your inbox once a week. And
also, if it's not too much, I mean, subscribe to us over here, and then that way we can also, you know, when we're live, you know, when we got new content, you also know if Julie forgot to put the video out because she got hung up in writing. That's what happened this week. And then Izzy was like, Julie, video. And I'm sitting there like, I'll get right to that. Which resulted in Julie doing 2 paragraphs and going to bed, because I was out. I was done. So thankfully.
So make sure you're following both of us, so that way you see the prompt one way or another.
Yes. So thank you guys so much. I hope you had a great time, and we will see you again next week. Bye. Love you.